The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. This is Russet, Morrow. I am going to get going. We'll get going in just a minute or so. I just want to give people a little bit more time to get on. All right, everyone. We'll get going now. Just so everybody knows before we get moving too far along, this webinar is going to be recorded and it's going to be saved in the QT2 Resource Center. And also, could someone just take a second and let me know if you can hear me by just kind of typing a little shout out in the question box. Just want to make sure, this is worth your while. You're not listening to dead space. All right, I'm going to assume that we can all hear. First off, I just want to introduce myself to start with. I'm Russet Morrow. I have been racing with the QT2 family since 2009. I've been a coach with Outrival Racing for the past 2 years. And you'll see Jesse Kropelnicki is actually logged in. I am Jesse tonight. You're stuck with me. So if you have any questions, you can either ask me or I am joined by Coach Amy Javens. Amy, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. This is Amy Javens from QT2 Systems. I'm a level 2 coach. I'm buddying up with Russet here today. We're going to tag team this webinar about recovery and restoration this evening. I've been with QT2 since 2012 as an athlete and around 2013 as a coach. So I might be slightly older than Russet, so I might be the elder of the bunch here today delivering to you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and give this back to Russet, and she's going to begin our webinar for you this evening.
So we're just going to talk today about recovery and restoration. And given today is Global Running Day, I'm hoping that maybe people will be able to pick a few tips up to help them in their training and recovery. And also, just before we get to the next slide, if something happens, given technology, just log on back in. If we lose you, log on back in. So first off, if anybody has ever been to a QT webinar before, this is going to look very familiar to them. We've got what we call the 5 cornerstones, and it's really the training philosophy of QT2. The first one is training. Then we've got nutrition and rest. We've got event fueling. We've got pacing. And then we've got mental fitness. So this should all be probably somewhat familiar to people. Today, we're really going to focus on training and nutrition and rest. That's really what the recovery and restoration sort of cornerstones fall into for tonight. You'll see, that falls under preparation to execute a race or an event. The next ones down are really the event fueling and pacing are all about getting that race execution perfect. And the mental training kind of plays a larger role in kind of everything else. And we'll touch on that actually a little bit later on too, how the mental training may fall into training and nutrition and rest. But, why are we even talking about recovery restoration? Why do we even think about it? What's the focus here? I mean, really, QT2 takes a holistic approach to a training season. And so one of the things that we really like to hammer home with people is the importance of this topic. Quality of training is improved. injury prevention, preventing dehydration and electrolyte depletion. That's obviously an important part of both recovery and restoring yourself for the following workout. Again, resetting your body after a tough workout, repairing soft tissue damage. Elevated cortisol levels happen after a tough workout. You need to return those levels back to normal, and being able to do it in a sort of a safe way is really what we're looking to do. And honestly, we all want to get faster. So that's really what a lot of this is about. Day to day, your body's really being worn down. Needs to have a chance to build post exercise, and so we really want to think about how to balance both that stress and that recovery as you work out. So we have a really fun video. I'm going to cross my fingers that it plays. Show it to you now. So Amy found that video. I think it's just kind of a cute way to show, and she can jump into kind of how sore you can get after a really tough race or after a really tough workout. And hopefully we've done some recovery along the way, and we've got some restoration ideas to get you guys rolling so that you don't look like that, 2 days after your big marathon event.
We all heard of the post-marathon walk, right? So that is exactly how a lot of us look after a post-marathon or a post-Ironman day, sometimes even after a large training day or a high-intensity day. And so we're here today to give you some tips on how important it is to not only recover from those big event days, but also how to recover from our day-to-day training. You may have heard this saying within the QT2 system. Many of our coaches have said, it's not that we overtrain, it's that we can under-recover. And our training sets us up to have increment improvements throughout a period of time. However, if we under-recover, whether it's not getting enough sleep, not having adequate nutrition or hydration, or maybe elevated cortisol levels due to stress, whether it's physical, emotional, or mental stress that we face along our training regimens, it can definitely impede our recovery. So incorporating recovery, Russet, I think you were going to go ahead and do this slide.
Take that from you, sure. So just kind of jumping off what Amy said, training plus the right amount of recovery equals fitness. And this is actually both in training, during a typical training week, and also sort of in between workouts, how you are recovering is also important. Training plus not enough recovery, you're just going to get sick. You're going to you're going to be injured. You're just going to feel blah. You're going to, if there's kind of this up, and no downtime, eventually that up is really just going to blow up in your face. So we don't like that either. Training plus too much recovery is certainly not good either. If you're doing kind of blip here, a blip there, and you're thinking like, why am I not getting better? I did like a 5-mile run yesterday and then I took 5 days off. That doesn't work either. You're really not going to see any improvement with that. And so at QT2, we kind of try to figure out what is the right level or balance between that training and recovery to get the right amount of fitness at the right time, and so you peak at the right time. So that's what we're talking about here.
Why recovery? So in day-to-day training, the body is constantly being torn down, right? Training is basically a cannibalistic activity. It is not anabolistic, right? It's cannibalistic. We break our muscle fibers down. But if with proper recovery and restoration, we can build those muscle fibers up to be stronger and better than what they were before. So for optimal gains, one must balance training with stress levels and rest and recovery. And too much of either will inhibit progress, as Russet mentioned in the former slide. Glycogen depletion, right? So at the end of a training session, we have sucked all of the glycogen out of our muscles. Our body have utilized it as food. So we need to restore glycogen. That's part of the recovery protocol that we encourage at QT2 Systems. Fluid loss, dehydration may occur. Hopefully, if we're on a core diet fueling plan, dehydration is not an issue. If we're practicing implementing our fueling plan as we are told, we should not have a dehydration issue. However, we will have fluid loss. So that is a very key component of having proper recovery with our training. Electrolyte depletion, soft tissue damage, as I mentioned, our muscle fibers, they're getting broken down as we train. So we must do things to build them back up and to speed up that growth after training. Cortisol levels are elevated. That is a natural reaction our body has after training. So what can we do to keep those cortisol levels down or get them down immediately? Maybe it's after a hard training session, or maybe it's after a big cluster of training, whether it would be the Florida camp you might go to, or the Lake Placid camp that you go to, or you're in your overload or your peak of a training plan getting ready for your event, which might be about 2 to 4 weeks away. How do we get those cortisol levels down? Basically, your body is tired and it needs to reset to become stronger. Many people forget this. They forget to recover and how important it is to recover and restore. That's the difference between exercising and training. Many times, and I'm sure Russet can agree with me on this, many times, an athlete may come to us and they come from maybe more of like an exercise kind of background where they feel they have to just nail it every day, go as hard as they can every day. And then when we ask the athletes to incorporate recovery days and to restore their bodies, it's a little bit of a shocker. So that's the difference between training our body to become stronger, and just being a quote exerciser.
Yeah, we get a lot of pushback from that.
So how do we become more like Forrest Gump? Run, Forrest, run, right? He just kept running. He just started to run one day. So how can we become a little bit like Forrest Gump so that we can allow our bodies to take on the loads that we're demanding from them in training?
So I will take this tip: make the easy days easy. So we don't mean just like, easy. We mean really, really easy. So no heart rate is too low, no pace or power is too low. So run literally a few minutes slower, like your grandma's passing you, right? Don't be afraid to push 35 watts on the bike. There's really no shame in that. I know there was a QT2 coach who used to say that she just tried not to sweat on some of her recovery rides. So that's, a rule of thumb. In the summertime, it's maybe a little bit harder to do that. But if you're running a 9-minute mile, for instance, you can run an 11-minute mile. We really want you. You're not winning your race. You're just helping to flesh out the system and get yourself ready for harder workouts. You're not winning a race on the days that you're taking the easy days easy. Again, also there should be, and if you have a heart rate chart from QT2, your heart rate zones, there should be in your chart. And if you don't know this, just go back and double check between your ZR, your recovery zone, and your aerobic zone, your zone 1. There should be a significant number of beats, 6, 8. Some people have 10, I think, depending on the chart, depending on the person. Between recovery and zone 1, and we really want people to differentiate between those zones. So between recovery and aerobic, avoid working in that gray area, because if you're in that gray area, those couple of beats in between recovery and zone 1, you're not really resting. but you're not really building an aerobic base either, and you're just kind of stuck in this mucky area. So we want you to avoid that at all costs. So tip number 2, take a recovery drink after every single workout. It's an easy, great way to improve recovery. Try to do it within 15 minutes of a workout. I know there's at least one person out there who actually starts it like the last couple of minutes, maybe as you're cooling down, if you're inside on the bike, start slurping that recovery drink. We like those drinks that are a 4-to-1 or 3-to-1 carbohydrate to protein ratio. And you can scale the amount to the duration of your workout. You don't need to put, like 2 scoops of Endurax in after a 45-minute Z1 bike. So don't go nuts. You can scale down, but certainly try to get into the habit of doing that. Some examples are clean, Ultradin Endurax. You can use chocolate milk in a pinch. I mean, I've been known to do that after, like a Z1 run, hour one, like a really hot day. That chocolate milk feels real good. The reason that we wouldn't necessarily use chocolate milk is that it's just harder for the body to digest, and we just want to make everything as easy as possible on ourselves when we're recovering. The other thing to remember is to replenish your electrolytes, that sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, all that good stuff. Something like a noon drink would do the trick. I'll have those actually. Sometimes I'll drink a noon like the afternoon after my long bike ride, both to kind of replenish myself for that day, and also really set myself up for the next day. Because remember, when you're recovering and taking that recovery drink, you're not just recovering from that workout, or you are recovering from that workout, but you also want to kind of top yourself up or set yourself up for a good workout down the road, the next day and then down the road. So tip number 3, good nutrition. And as Amy sort of referenced before, Core Diet can certainly help you with this if you're interested in that, and you don't have either a nutrition plan from them or a fueling plan for them. They're a sister company within that QT2 umbrella and would be happy to help you on this. So proper hydration in and out of workouts. Again, thinking about this holistically. Don't just like not drink anything and then say, oh, I have a workout, I'm drinking something now, and then kind of forget about it afterward. Nutrient-dense foods. Think about what's really going to do the best for you to make you have a successful workout. Lean meats, fruits and veggies. Try to get that stuff in every day. Try to, I have a little like a chart I try to check off when I'm having, when I really need to be thinking about what I'm eating, especially as I get closer to a race. Beta carotene rich foods. So you want to think about sweet potatoes, dark leafy greens, your antioxidants, beet juice and cherry juice. I mean, that's certainly something. I use beet juice, especially the week leading into a race. All of that good stuff. Nuts are, again, another source of a nutrient-dense food. Foods that are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, again, they really help with reducing inflammation. You can take supplements, but there's nothing like the real thing. So something like a salmon would be a good choice for something like that. Again, think about, your protein intake. I mean, you've got, as endurance athletes, we need more protein than, say, my mom who spends the day gardening, right? So whey protein at night if needed. I usually pop one in, especially if I kind of look back during the day and say, oh, I really haven't had enough protein today. I'll definitely have one before I go to bed at night, because again, the body rebuilds itself as you're sleeping. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. And so taking a whey protein at night will really help you with that as well. And again, strive to get half your body weight in water in ounces. And that's not including all of the fluid that you've lost during a workout. So really, outside of your workout, trying to get that water in or that fluid in.
I have a couple things to interject with the nutrition slide. The last 2 bullets where you mentioned the body weight and water. Very important to get water in outside of training. Of course, inside training, sport fuel only. If you take water for outside training, use it to dump over your head in hot conditions. If you're outside, not if you're in the house. But if you're going to drink more than your body weight in water outside of training, like Russet mentioned, please add some noon tablets to that water.
Yes.
Because once when we start drinking more like our body weight in ounces of water, not half, but once we start drinking more water than half our body weight, we risk the chance of diluting electrolytes out of our system. So very important. It's okay to drink lots of water, but if you go beyond that half your body weight in ounces, very important to replenish electrolytes. And a simple noon tablet will replenish your calcium, your magnesium, your potassium, and also your salt. And the adequate protein, I can't stress this enough at night. Taking in protein at night, like Russet said, your body builds itself up at night. And especially when you get to those really intense phases of your training or the high volume parts of your training, I can remember going to bed starving, even though I may have only eaten like an hour or 2 hours before I went to bed. My metabolism gets revved up, your metabolism gets revved up, everything's just building and breaking down with your body. And a great protein source, whey protein is a very good source to get in just for a quick powder kind of, you know, put some powder in water and drink it. But if you want something that's going to last a little bit longer in the night, and I've had to wake up in the middle of the night because I'll be hungry again in the middle of the night. And that's when I know, oh gosh, I really need to increase or change my protein at night. You might want to change to more of a casein protein, which will break down a little bit longer. Whey protein will break down a little bit quicker, and that's why whey protein is a lot of times in recovery fuel, because we do want it to break down quicker. But at night, we might want to reach for something like cottage cheese or Greek yogurt, just to sort of, you know, take its time breaking down as we're sleeping, so we don't wake up in the middle of the night starving and, risking reducing our sleep because of the interruption of our hunger waking us up. So those are my 2 points with nutrition.
That is an excellent point. And I have been known, I tried the cottage cheese for a while, was not a fan, but the Greek yogurt has worked at night. Thank you for pointing that out, Amy. See, I told you she was wiser. Okay, so continuing the pre-workout, thinking about, okay, the time right before your workout, the time within a half hour before your workout. Make sure you're not starting under fuel. Don't like jump up out of bed, which I've been known to do, I will admit, and say, oh, I'm going to go on an hour run now. Have a gel, have a like a Nature Valley bar, something like that, but not too much fat or fiber. Pre-exercise, your gut will appreciate that. If you're starting to eat like a 5-course meal or like a salad even an hour before, you think, I'm getting my leafy greens in, now I'm going to go running. It's like the worst thing. Again, I've done that. You don't want to go there. So just make sure you're thinking about that again, but you don't want to go in completely underfueled either. Proper workout fueling, don't skimp out on gels or sports drink. Don't say, well, I've got a party later today and I've got to save my calories for that. So I'm just going to drink water. I'm not going to take my gel every 40 minutes or whatever my plan calls for. That's a terrible idea. I will say years and years ago, way before QT2, my daughter's 13 now. She's about 6 months old. And I was training for a marathon. I was like, I don't need Gatorade. That's just for professional athletes. So I went out and I did my 18 miles, came back out of shower, was ready to go out, picked her up, immediately fainted on the couch. And that's because I did not fuel beforehand very well, during very well, or after very well. So let me be your story. Don't be like me. Make sure you're drinking a bottle of sports drink an hour, especially on the bike, minimum. And again, talking about that recovery post-drink, you can see this is like the second time it's come up. So clearly it's important. But we really want you to do that with that 4-to-1 or 3-to-1 ratio of carbs to protein. Eat every 45 minutes during the workout, whether it's gels or bars, again, depending on what your fueling plan is calling for. Practice race nutrition every workout. Just make that a habit so that you're not entering race week saying, oh, geez, what is it? How many drinks can I take? It's a harder race. And like, how many bottles do I need to get up to in order to adequately get my fueling in, that kind of thing. You just want to make it a no-brainer. start months and months out from your race to really start nailing that, seeing what's working, what works and what doesn't. And then on long workouts, just don't forget salts. That's something that gets left out sometimes, I think. Amy, did I forget anything on this?
Nope, sounds great.
Woo-hoo. All right. So tip 4, sleep a lot. I am terrible about this. 7.5 hours a night at minimum. This is something, again, talking about getting in a routine and making this a priority. Not expensive, really effective. Kind of to our point earlier, the growth hormone that helps damaged tissue is released at night. So if you are not getting enough sleep, you are not getting it adequately repaired. The whey protein can only go so far in making sure that that happens. Maximize your sleep before midnight. If you are able to do that, because your quality, and there's scientific studies out there that show this, but you get, I guess, higher quality sleep prior to midnight. So it's great if you can sleep 12 to 8, great, but you're going to bed at midnight. Let's switch it down and let's see if you can get to bed at like 9 o'clock, which is my dream. See what you can do about getting as much sleep as you can. All right, I'm going to hand this over to Amy now.
Sometimes we get a question about sleep, such as, you know what, I only had 5 hours last night. My dog kept me awake, the baby was crying. Is it okay if I break my sleep up? Of course. Like if you could do like a 2-hour nap in the middle of the day, and altogether you get the 7.5 hours from what you had from the nighttime and what you had during the day, that's better than just going off of 5 hours. I had an athlete that was an early riser, and he wouldn't go to bed till 11 or 12. And sometimes I would get like emails from him at 11 or 12 at night, and I would email back, go to bed. but he took naps in the middle of the day. He had 1 hour he took out of his work day, and he was self-employed, so he was able to do that. And he took a nap. So he was able to meet that quota, and he was able to meet the 7.5 by adding everything together. I see you, Russet. I see your
button that I thought would make things better, and instead it shows my forehead. So apologies, everyone.
Well, while we're looking at Russet's forehead, I'm going to go ahead and move on with tip number 5. But you know what? I was thinking we should show pictures of our faces sometime in this webinar. All right, so tip number 5, and before I move on to tip number 5, if you're listening, there is a question box on your tool box there to the right of your screen. If you have any questions about what we discussed up to now, feel free to type the question in there. No question is a bad question. If you're thinking of a question, chances are 10 other people are thinking about the same question. So anytime, you're welcome to type in the questions, and Russet and I will monitor those questions and answer them as they come up. So tip number 5, soft tissue mobilization, the foam roller. Self-massage rolling is cheap massage. So we would highly recommend to purchase a foam roller. Throughout my life of foam rolling, I have gone from the smooth, like sort of the styrofoam looking foam roller, to the bumpy one, and now I've graduated to the spiky foam roller. My opinion, the spikier, the better. It takes a while to get used to that discomfort, but when you can get to that point of getting a foam roller, like the one in the picture here is a bit smoother, but if you can get to the point of getting to a more bumpier or a spikier foam roller, that's even better. Of course, a professional massage is wonderful. So if you can schedule a professional massage once a week, that's great. If it's maybe a couple times before a big event as you're training and peaking for a race, that's great too. So a professional massage, and when you look for a professional massage person who will help with your soft tissue mobilization, which will help your recovery, look for someone who is sports specific. you know, not all massages are equal. So definitely look at credentials, get recommendations from area athletes that you know of a sports-specific massage therapist. The therapy for percussive guns, those such as Hyper Ice, Theragun, those are relatively new. If we were giving this webinar 6 years ago, there really wasn't anything like this. So in the endurance industry, there is always something new. The therapy and the therapy guns are wonderful. They are awesome. And again, the money you would probably save purchasing a therapy gun with the money that you would end up spending on a massage therapist over the year, it would probably be worth it to purchase the therapy gun and to do it yourself. There's a lot of YouTube videos that will show you how to use those guns appropriately. And also soft tissue mobilization, just general stretching is very important. Dynamic stretching at the beginning of a workout most of the time, and static stretching at the end of the workout. And you can use assistance with yoga straps or TheraBands to help with stretching. Compression. One of our sponsors is Normatec. So we all probably are familiar with the Normatec compression boots. This guy or girl is really having a very good compression system where she or he has the boots and the arm compression sleeves on. There is even a girdle. There's like a girdle back compression device that Normatec makes. When I was in the highlight of my training and my competition, I was in these every day, pretty much every day. Compression socks. You can buy cheap compression socks at the dollar store, at the drugstore, or you can buy name brand compression socks. So that's something that I encourage my athletes to use, especially if they're traveling on the plane or if they know that they're going to be walking a fair amount of time. So compression socks. Wear your compression gear, and they even make like compression pants, they make compression, tops, and we wear these post-workout, and again, like I said, traveling or standing for long periods of time. Tip number 7, joint mobilization. Traction. So you can do self-traction or you can do assisted traction. Picture on the right is myself doing a self-traction with a TheraBand or a jump stretch band. I have a couple jump stretch bands. This is the heavier one, and it's hard to tell from this picture, but what I'm doing is I am contracting my hip and my thigh and my hamstring muscles, and I'm using that band as a traction of the joint while I'm doing that stretching. If you look at the bottom left is a therapist on a traction bed. Again, that is an assisted traction method for joint mobilization. Chiropractic therapy. As I mentioned before with the massage therapist, ask around area athletes, get recommendations of a chiropractor who specializes in sports and particularly endurance sports. And there are some really good chiropractors out there who can help with joint mobilization, especially in the hips, the ankles, if you're a swimmer, and the upper body joints. So I always say it takes a village to raise a triathlete. So if you have a great chiro in your pocket, you have a great physical therapist in your pocket, you have a massage therapist, an RD, a coach, a mental training therapist, if you have all those people in your pocket, you're doing pretty good. Chiropractic care is definitely one of those professions that can definitely help you with recovery. And also manual therapy. A lot of physical therapists do joint mobilization. They just use the term manual therapy. So there are some physical therapists who are manual therapist certified. So you might be able to hit two birds with one stone with a really good physical therapist who not only has physical therapist skills, with what they do day in and day out, with injury prevention and whatnot, but also some really good joint mobilization manual therapy skills. And tip number 8, cryotherapy. That's the old-fashioned ice baths, all right? We see the picture on the bottom left of the old-fashioned ice baths that used to be in the athletic training rooms and still are. It could be simply as sitting into a cold riverbed at the end of a workout. As you see here, this is a picture of my daughter at her running camp that she went to up in the mountains in Colorado. And after every run, they would sit in the riverbed and they would ice their bodies that way. Cryotherapy, you've seen the beds, like the gentleman down here on the right. Those are really popular now. You probably see them more in a spa setting, just because it's a really cool thing to do. But they definitely are advantageous for an athlete also. My philosophy is if you think it allows you to recover, even the mental part of thinking your recovery, it's worth trying if you have the funds to do it. And again, there's mobile cold cuffs, as you see here in the upper right corner, that you can carry around with you. These are more for injuries or post-surgical.
So I'll take it. Tip number 9, meditation. And you can see that there is a wide variety of other sort of other ways to recover, restorative ways. Yoga, obviously one of them, sort of outside of the stretching to really kind of center yourself. Music therapy, visualization, worship, that makes a difference again to kind of center yourself, to feel that sense of community. Same as in nature. I went for a swim a couple of weeks ago at a pond I've never swum at before, and I got out and just kind of looked around and it took my breath away. I thought, this is really relaxing. I feel it was just so peaceful. And again, it made me kind of breathe in a little bit and center myself. Different scents have been shown to calm, to energize. You can kind of explore with some of that as well. Animal therapy is sort of another tried and true way. And also some mental training exercises. I mean, kind of Amy had a couple of minutes ago talked about having a sort of a mental fitness person in your life, and certainly doing that visualization. What is a great race day going to look like? What is a great workout going to look like? What are 3 things that are going to be positive about the workout I'm about to do? What is that going to look like? And just kind of thinking about that to center yourself on what you are doing, and just kind of think about sort of your season as a whole or your plan as a whole. Do you have anything else, Amy?
Nope, sounds good.
Okay. All right, so other techniques, and I'm sorry, I think I'm doing this one, but if I'm not, just jump in. There's also some other things. There's a whole host of, a million other different things, but just to kind of round some things out, dry needling is something. I have had that a number of times. Actually, I've been having that done on my calf. And that really is, and Amy can probably speak to this better than I can, but it's like acupuncture, but not exactly, where they literally put dry needles in when your fascia gets all kind of knotted up. The idea is to get that needle in that fascia where it's all bunched up and kind of almost zing it back to normal. And so that's a way for me sort of injury recovery. And it really helps prevent further injury by ensuring that your muscles, that fascia in your muscles, is nice and smooth. Cupping also, it's a way of drawing blood to your muscles so that you can draw that blood again through your muscles, and it really helps in recovering and making sure that there's adequate blood flow in their muscles so that your body is moving the way that it should. The other thing I just wanted to touch on today is red light therapy, which I think is pretty new. I'd never heard of it outside a couple of weeks ago or maybe a month ago. There's various different therapies on this. You can do it on your whole body. You can do it on different parts of your body. And it's meant to you can use it to energize your body before a workout. It's somehow magically probably not so magically. I'm sure there's scientific evidence out there, but it works with your body's cellular mitochondria. And it, like I said, you can use it before a workout to energize yourself. You can use it after a workout. You'll do it. I think it's only, say, 20 minutes long or something, a session could be. And it really, again, helps your muscles recover. And I actually read somewhere for any of us oldsters out there that it reduces wrinkles on your face. So I guess that's an added benefit as well if it's something you're looking for.
A lot of the companies that make the red light therapy, they can make it as like almost like a tanning bed, but it's a red light bed where you can lay in it. There's like this gentleman, you can stand next to these big panels. They make big panels that you can just stand in front of. They make them a little bit smaller, maybe like box size panels, and then they make portable ones too that you can carry with you. And if you're traveling and say you have a tight calf muscle or your shoulder has something going on, you can use these portable light panels that are maybe like book size that you just plug in and you just hold it right above the body part that you want. There's also research with depression and helping your mood and elevating your mood. And as we know, when we elevate our mood, our cortisol levels go down, hence we recover, we restore better.
All sorts of good stuff there. So building recovery into a plan. So we've been kind of looking at what you can do now with your body. So I'm just going to take a step back here and kind of look at a bigger picture, sort of what you may see in your plan, what a coach is putting into your plan. You're thinking, all right, why is my coach thinking what he or she is thinking? So generally we have 3 or 4 weeks on, build weeks, and then 1 week off within a plan. It varies a little bit depending on where in your season you are. But essentially it's that what we talked about earlier, that balance of fitness and recovery. And so hence the 3 weeks on, 1 week off. Generally there are 1 or 2 no leg days where you may have a rest day. You may have just the swim. As you get into the season. Again, that's all part of ensuring that everyone is recovering properly, and maybe then you've got extra time to do red light therapy or yoga or whatever it is that's kind of that wraparound to your training. And you'll probably notice in your plan on easy days and recovery weeks, there are shorter workouts and there are more workouts in your recovery zone. You won't have every single workout like that. Because you don't want to get too dull, but you will have a few anyway during that week. And again, hammering this home, no pace is too slow, no heart rate is too low. Just remember that on your recovery days, try not to break a sweat and you're good to go. All right, we are only as good as our recovery, so just kind of bring it back. And Amy pointed me to this slide, but there's this 1% rule. I don't know if anybody here has heard of Sir Dave Brailsford. Essentially, he was brought on for the British cycling team back in the early 2000s. They were, from what I understand, kind of the laughing stock, and they couldn't even get a sponsor. Sponsors were afraid to give them their bikes because they were too embarrassed by the team. So they brought him in, and he basically said, okay, we can do what every other team is doing and try to get in the wind tunnel and have better fitting kits, or we can have, more aero bikes. So, he did all of that stuff too. But then what he also did was really took a look around and said, okay, how can we improve, incrementally, very, very little things within this team's life that's going to make sort of a bigger impact. So they took a look at everything from what mattresses they were sleeping on to, what was the feather count or the down count in their pillows. They brought a surgeon in to show all of the teammates how to wash their hands properly. So he took a look at every minute detail, because he was thinking kind of the idea of compounding interest, like that 1% here is going to gain on that 1% there. And you're just going to, the whole is bigger than the part of its sums, was sort of, I guess, how I would look at it that way. He went on again to work with the British cycling team, the Tour de France Team Sky from Britain. And, you kind of see what happened with them from 2012 to 2014, 50, whatever it was. He had very, very good success. And part of it was they were literally looking at every little thing. How can we improve exactly what they eat afterward to, again, what do they sleep on? They would bring in special sheets. They would bring in everything they could to get those 1% incremental gains. You make a couple of bad decisions here and there, not a big deal, but you keep making those bad decisions or poor decisions, and over time you'll see everything just kind of goes to pot. But if you keep building on those 1% improvements, you're going to see an incremental gain that's going to be large over time. And that's sort of the idea of sort of this recovery and restoration. Those little things, sitting in your Normatex for 20 minutes, doing that extra round of stretching that's not necessarily in your plan, ensuring that you get a good night's sleep as often as you can. Those little things, one-offs on their own aren't a big deal, but you add them up over time and they snowball, and you are more successful than you otherwise would be. So, we hope that you take that away from this webinar tonight. And with that, are there any questions?
Feel free to chime in with any questions that you have, or reasons why we have protocols and recommendations. I'm just really happy, Russet, you didn't put the webcam on me this evening.
I would have.
Anybody questions? Feel free to ask us, even if it's non-recovery and restoration. Don't be shy. In the question box, go ahead and type something in. We'll give you like a minute or two here.
We answered everything, Amy.
I think so.
I will say, I know that just in the interest of stretching this out in case anybody's typing right now, is I do get a lot of pushback from new athletes on why do I have to do recovery runs? Why can't I just go like all out whenever I feel like, or, oh no, I felt really great today. So I just did a Z3 run. And so, there really is a method to our madness. And you've been with QT2 long enough, you get this, but especially for those who may be newer, again, there is a reason we do what we do. So hopefully this answered some of that. We
definitely will learn to enjoy and embrace Recovery Day. I know I always enjoyed and embraced Recovery Day, and being a mom, and you're also a mother, Russet, the emotional side of Recovery Day, besides just having the physical stress reduced on Recovery Day, but the emotional part of Recovery Day, of being able to spend a little bit more time with my family, or to take the dog for the walk, or worship, go to church, that was worth it within itself. So, when you think about recovery, you want to think about, what makes you, what places you in your zen, what makes you comfortable, what relaxes you. Those are the things that we're striving for for recovery days, and even through different times of the year, there is a recovery time of the year. Traditionally, it's, November, December.
Yeah.
It's a little different this year because of COVID. I think we're going to be seeing more of a recovery time now, and then it's going to ramp back up, and we might just be training through November and December, depending on how things play out with events being postponed and rescheduled. But just very, very important. Remember, you're training your body, and even people who are exercising, we almost have to retrain the people who are, quote, the exercisers, like I mentioned before. We almost have to retrain their brains of thinking like, I am training my body to become stronger and to become healthier. And, everyone should be having recovery days, and not just the people who are training for events. Anyone who is moving their bodies need to have recovery days.
So we have a question: of the tips, which provides the biggest bang for the time spent? Would that be sleep, is the question.
I would say sleep and nutrition rank up there pretty high. Yeah.
Yes, I can't underscore. I think sleep is great. I noticed because I went when I used to work in an office and I had to get up really early, versus now that I can sleep in a little bit later. I have a little bit more flexible schedule. It makes a huge difference, and I wish that I could take more naps, actually. But I think to your point also, Amy, nutrition. People will call it some people call it kind of the fourth discipline, or the fifth, however many disciplines there are. Fifth, that's a discipline. If mental fitness is the fourth, of triathlon, because people don't. I think they focus so much on working out and not so much on fueling, and they get to an Ironman and they're just dead, and they're like, well, why didn't this work? So I think both fueling, nutrition, but also day to day. And one of the things I like about the core diet is I am a girl who likes I'll admit it, who likes a routine and likes her schedule. And for me to be able to have a schedule from the core diet, here's what I eat when, I eat my carbs here, and then I eat them after my workout for this long. And here's, I need to, I'm competitive enough. How many vegetables and fruits have I had today? I need to have more. So you can make that into, I guess, apparently a little bit of a game. But I do think that nutrition is really important as well.
Yeah. With my best years of performing in triathlon, I was sleeping 8 to 10 hours a night. Now, practicality, can everybody do that? No. So I would say maximize sleep as much as you can. And if there's one day a week, like a Sunday, that you can maximize your sleep to 8 to 10 hours, definitely do that. But life is life. There might be some 5-hour nights. There might be some, 10-hour nights that you can sleep. But I think sleep is very, very high priority. And then also nutrition. Nutrition to just carry you to the starting line healthy. We don't want those blood marker levels to go low. We want to keep them high. And that's what nutrition is going to do for you. People look at nutrition as like, oh, weight loss, numbers, calories, pounds on a scale. And I really try to get my athletes to think of nutrition as what can it do to make your body stronger, and how many micronutrients can you fit in that body throughout the day? Like, how many colors can you eat throughout the day, and not Skittles, colors that grow from the earth. So yeah, I would rank those high. Those would be ranked very high, both nutrition and sleep.
So we have a question: what about endurance supplements? I'm assuming do you mean things like fish oil, that kind of thing? Or vitamins? I mean, my first answer, but Amy, you can expound on this too, is, if you can eat whole foods, that's always the way to go, but you can't always do that. It's just not, you either don't have time or you just can't. There's only so much salmon you can eat in a week. QT2 has right? We have a partnership with Clean, and they make some excellent products. They do a recovery. I actually have the recovery, and I have their protein, their whey protein right now too. And I also have their fish oil. We didn't really touch on this, I guess, but omega-3 is a big one. I'm trying to think of what else, Amy. Do you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, I have one of those pill boxes that, like elderly people use. I guess I might be creeping up there, but I have a pill box, and there's certain things that I put in it, and I safeguard myself. So ultimately, I try to eat very well to get micronutrients, macronutrients in me appropriately. I always have a multi-B that I fall back on. I use the clean multi-B. There's another multi-B, I want to say it's called Endurance multi-B, that I've used in the past. Omega-3s, I get a high quality omega-3s again. Clean makes an omega-3, and I have that in my pill box. As a woman, iron, but I would not go there unless you know your iron levels and your blood markers for ferritin and whatnot.
Yes.
So I do have iron in there, but that's something that my body needs. I just don't absorb it very well. Another thing, I do safeguard myself, especially when the training gets heavy and the weather gets hot. I do take electrolyte tablets outside of training, but again, that's my body, and I've known over time that I need to take a little bit more electrolytes in if I'm not getting it in through my diet. Oh, I'm trying to think what else. And then some calcium. But as far as supplements personalized for you, our RDs do blood marker checks. So we have a list of blood measurements that we will give our athletes, and we will ask you to get a blood test. And from the results of that blood test, our registered dietitians can give you really great advice on how to start maybe eating certain kinds of food to help with certain deficits they might see in your blood work, or even supplements for that. And I would consider like beet juice, cherry juice as supplements also. I know they make like beet powder, you know, if it's just not practical for you to be carrying around beet performer cans or whatnot, they do make beet powder. It might not be as highly potent as an actual can of beet juice. That would be another supplement. But yeah, I mean, the best I can do is just sort of share what I have used over the years. Collagen was something else. You know, unless you want to make bone broth and use bone broth if you're cooking, that will help you with collagen, which is tissue repair. Again, it's very personalized, but I would definitely say omega-3s are probably a high priority, and a multi-B is a high priority. But I would definitely check with your doctor or your RD on like what kinds. I hope that helps.
Give it another couple of seconds for questions.
Another thing I wanted to share with the beet juice is when I first started training for triathlons, I was under another coaching system, and I was taking nitric oxide just as like a powder format. And basically that's what beet juice is. Beet juice is a nitric oxide, it is a vein dilator. Some people are responders to it, some people are not. There's a lot of research. It's really interesting research about beet juice and who responds and who doesn't. It has to do with the physiology of the muscle fibers that certain individuals have. Very interesting research. But that's basically what beet juice is. It's a nitric oxide. It's a vein dilator, which allows more more oxygen to flow through your veins. And then on a side note, beet juice is a superfood. Beets are superfoods. So you also get really great micronutrients from beet juice.
I think we've got one more question, which I'm having trouble pulling up here.
Oh, caffeine is another supplement. We do have caffeine, right, Russet, in our fueling plans. Maybe you want to share a little bit about caffeine?
Yes, I'm trying to pull this question up, and I can't do two things at once. But so as far as caffeine goes, we want you. Tell me if this is how you would answer this question, Amy, because I want to make sure that that we're on the same page here. I'm sure we are. We want to make sure that we use it strategically, and so you know, I use it partway through the bike in an Ironman and not before then. I drink decaf coffee. If you're a coffee drinker, they'll tell you the week or so, couple weeks leading up to a race to gradually cut out the caffeine so that when the caffeine hits your system, it really hits your system and it is useful for your body. You're theoretically able to work harder at an effort and have it not hurt as much with caffeine. I can always tell the second it hits my body on the bike because I am ready to go. And so again, we use it as a strategy. Like Amy said, it's in your fuel plan. If your body can tolerate it, again, this is something that you would have in your fuel plan and you would experiment with to make sure that you can tolerate several months before your race, not the day of the race. You don't just decide to take it the day of the race. So certainly that's something that we would use in training to practice and then in races. I think there's a question about, and I'm sorry, there's something going on with my computer, so I can't really pull it up. So tell me if I have this right. You're asking about recovery drinks or how many scoops or calories per hour. I'm assuming during a race, and I apologize. My computer's about to die here. Somebody had a question about that. And that again is, okay. How much recovery drink should you consume after a workout? Let's see, such as scoops or calories per hour. I mean, that depends on the workout. That depends on the brand of recovery powder that you have. I know, for instance, my husband has like Power Bar Recovery, and it's like 6 scoops per like 8 ounces of water or something. I know, for instance, in Durax, it really varies. Like we were saying earlier, is you can scale it back or use more on harder days. So if I've had like a 6-hour bike ride and a 60-minute run, I'm going to use 2 scoops of Endurax. I'm also a woman who's like on a good day for my races around 120, 125 pounds. And so I'm going to use less than like my 180-pound husband. So it really sort of depends on kind of physiology, body weight, and what the workout is, and the brand. I don't know. Does that help? It looks like that may have been the last question. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to call it. We've been here about an hour, so we really appreciate everybody sticking with us for the last hour. Hope you got some good information out of this, and have a great night. Thanks.
Hey, I think, did everyone leave?
I think so. I still have never really figured out how to turn this off. Push buttons till it stops.
Yeah, so you'll know it's done when it starts loading on your computer.
Where do I stop it though? Because I always pause it. No, it's still being recorded. File. Thank you.
Yeah, there might be a pause button.
Yeah, I pushed the pause button.
How about recording?
Options.
I don't have the main toolbar in front of me, so
That's fine. I push that, what happens? Here we go. We're going to leave. End webinar for all. Yes.